First off, you saw nothing. Second, what's going on, guys? My name is Steven with Level Up MMO, and today's video is going to be all about the changes that have taken place since New World released a year ago. I'm going to cover everything from the big to the small in terms of the changes and let you decide whether or not you should come back to New World. Amazon Game Studios have been busy. It's a pretty long list, so let's get into it. Coming in as the very first thing we will be covering is a completely revamped levels 1 through 25 questing experience in New World. This is going to come with new points of interest, completely shifted quest lines, and more. So if you're thinking of coming back to the game, maybe wait for the Brimstone Sands update that's expected in October. However, a lot of the other changes in this list are already in the game. One of the ones we'll get into now is the group finder. That's right, the days of having to constantly post and hope that somebody will reply to you about finding a group for an expedition are long over. You can now create a lobby or join a lobby in a group finder where you can select a gear score minimum. You can put whether or not you're DPS, tank, healer, so on and so forth, and it is a much welcomed addition to the game. Sticking with expeditions, there will be 3 new expeditions to be running if you haven't played since the start of the game, with the addition of Brimstone Sands. There is already Tempest Heart expedition, as well as Barnacle and Black Powder, and then of course the Ennead, which comes with the new update. And don't worry, it's now easier to run these expeditions since they've removed keys. That's right, now you don't have to build a key or find a key to be able to get into these dungeons. You are simply limited in the number you can do. So regular expeditions, you could do 20 a day, and mutations, which we'll get into a little bit later, you can do 15 a week. I don't want to make you wait too long to talk about mutators, so that is what we'll get into now. So if you're familiar with Mythic Plus from World of Warcraft, that's essentially what this is. You can run from M0 all the way up to M10. It gets gradually more difficult, but the rewards become better. Now, I personally think the rewards could be better for playing the higher level ones. It's really just an abundance more of Umbral Shards, and that system will change with the Brimstone Sands update to be a little less top heavy for leveling up your gear score. Basically, the higher level mutations you run, the more difficult the mobs, as well as affixes which get applied, such as maybe the mobs blow up when they die, or maybe if they're grouped up they become stronger. Either way, it's a great addition to the end game, and it'll give you something else to do. All right, so far we've been a little PvE focused, so I'll shift over to PvP for a bit and talk about arenas. So the newest PvP mode is 3v3 arenas, which is small scale PvP, and it is a blast, allowing you to really test your mettle in a small scale environment against other players. Now, there are of course things that could improve about this, because sometimes you go in and it's like 2 or 3 healers matched together. You don't indicate what your spec is before you go in, and that can lead to some pretty one-sided matches, but overall it's a fun experience, and that leads us into the PvP track. So you can get all the information you need about the PvP reward system, or rather the PvP track, by just hitting K, going into your character screen, and of course the PvP tab here on the top. So from there, you can get an explanation of exactly how everything works by clicking that button, and then the emblems and rewards to know where you're at, and of course how to move to the next stage. So to go from recruit to steel, you only need to complete 1 track. To go from steel to bronze, however, you will need to have 5 tracks completed, so on and so forth, as you move your way up all the way to Star Metal track, which requires 200 tracks completed. So basically, by doing any PvP stuff in the game, whether it's OPR, arenas, or doing PvP missions, you will gain Azoth Salt. The Azoth Salt can be spent when you hit a checkpoint to grab specific items. Now, they are somewhat random, but as you go through, you can choose to either grab them or not grab them, and then you will get bonuses if you don't take some of the rewards that are offered. But once you fill out all 3 checkpoints, you can complete that track and move on to the next one. This is just another way to incentivize people to take part in some of the PvP elements of the game, and to give you something to play for, a little added excitement, build up the Azoth Salt, so on and so forth. It's a pretty neat addition and works well with all the PvP elements that they've been adjusting. Something else to make note of is that they have instanced wars. So previously, you would seal off all the area around the fort. Nobody could travel through there. It would seal off a part of the map, basically, because wars happened live in that server space. Well, now they are instanced, allowing for things to continue throughout the world. It's also worth mentioning here that there is going to be PvP gear scaling when it comes to arenas and OPR. Basically, what they're looking to do is take anybody who joins it and just put them at 600. If your gear score is over 600, let's say you're 625, you're geared out to the teeth, you'll still have that added advantage, but it won't be as steep. This will open it up to many more people who are maybe a little more casual to be able to jump in and enjoy PvP without putting them at a severe disadvantage. Now, for all my folks who are heavy into trading, messing with the auction house, well, we have major news for you. If you've been away for a while, there is now proper filtering when you use the auction house. As you can see, you can set whether you can equip it, can afford it, minimum price, max price, the minimum gear score, the max gear score, what attributes you want, which is huge. I asked for that for so long. They made a convoluted system previously, but it's gotten much easier. And then of course you can select your perks as well as any gems you want. Sticking on the theme of things that were just really painful to deal with previously, we'll be moving on to the storage situation. So you know, before you couldn't grab something from a storage shed and move it to another, you had to travel around a lot. Well, that's not the case anymore. You can jump into your storage shed and actually transfer things from anywhere. So let's say I went to grab this random schematic. Well, I can do that right here. I can move it straight from Monarch's Bluff, despite the fact that I'm an Everfall, right into my inventory. You can transfer things all around from anywhere you're at, and that is a huge quality of life update. Jumping into another big quality of life update, traveling is so easy now. You go to the map, you will notice, of course, that there are more places that you can travel to. They've added many more shrines throughout the map. There's tons everywhere, so getting around via the shrine is much easier, but also the cost. Here I am going from Everfall all the way to Restless Shores. It caps at 20. 20 is the most you will pay, which means that if you do anything in this game, you have enough Azoth to travel anywhere you want. All the way to the top of the map, 20. All the way to the bottom of the map, 12, because I'm closer. It's fantastic. Traveling is no longer a major issue. Now we'll talk about something that has been leaked. It hasn't been confirmed, and that is loadouts. Loadouts meaning that you can have two different gear sets set up and you can just swap between them easily. Instead of having to individually piece each one on, you can simply hit a loadout button and it will change. This makes sense coming to the game because the newest dungeons are requiring basically two gear sets. You might have to carry a corruption set as well as an angry earth set. So loadouts will be a fine addition and something that'll definitely spice up the game and give you more things to kind of grind out and try to equip. Let's talk about professions now, and in particular, the latest one, music. If you've ever played rhythm games, then you're going to love this. They have added multiple instruments to the game that you can collect and play songs that will give you bonuses such as reputation gain or gathering speed. Anybody in the radius of your song will hear it as well as get that benefit if they tip you gold. Now, I'm sure some of you are going, okay, that's cool, but what have they done with the other professions? And that's what we'll talk about now, which is the aptitude system. So essentially, to give you something to do once you have maxed something out at 200, they have added an aptitude system. As you can see, there are 3 sections to the aptitude system, and every time you hit one, you get a little reward as well as get a gypsum, which you can then use to increase gear score and things like that. So that's an added benefit, and it's nothing too crazy, but it's still nice to be able to get rewarded and earn something a little bit further along the way, even if you've maxed out your trade skills. Something I'm sure most people will be interested in is the new weapons that they've added to the game. So there's going to be 3 in total once they release Brimstone Sands, and I'm going to tell you all about those right now. So the first weapon they added was the Void Gauntlet as part of the Into the Void update, and it made a splash. There were a lot of issues with it initially, but it is still considered right now to be one of the best weapons in the game. After that, they brought in the Blunderbuss, which is an interesting one because it is a ranged weapon that does a bit better up close and actually scales off of strength. And that takes us to the Great Sword, the weapon that will be coming with the Brimstone Sands update and one of the most highly requested weapons for this game, and it looks amazing. Everybody who has played the PTR has talked about how great it feels, and I look forward to testing it myself when the update drops. And now I just want to go through a couple of the smaller things so I don't make this video too long. One of those things is going to be house taxes. They have dropped tremendously, and you can pay them from anywhere. It makes it really easy to keep your house. You also don't lose it if you don't pay your taxes. You just stop getting the benefits of the things you have in them, such as trophies and storage. Another nice addition is that your health now regens outside of combat. You don't have to eat food to get that started or wait for a healer. In addition, they have increased the server cap from where it started at 2,000 players to 2,500 players. And lastly, you can join wars or invasions from anywhere. All you have to do is open your map, click on the location that is going to war or has an invasion coming, and then just sign up via the board there. Another big thing that is coming with the Brimstone Sands update is variety in mobs. I know it's something that I and many others complained about. You essentially fought the same sort of creatures from the start of the game to the end of the game, and it got a little dull. They use the same abilities, they look the same aesthetically, apart from maybe like some coloring, And so the fact that we are getting a lot more mobs in Brimstone Sands is a breath of fresh air. Another thing we'll be getting in Brimstone Sands, in addition to I think earlier in the game as well, as far as the level 1 through 25 revamp, is cutscenes. Many more cutscenes to improve the immersion and give a little bit more to the storyline, which I'm very excited for, which is why I haven't watched any yet. Sticking with some other things from the Brimstone Sands update that are worth talking about is going to be that there are now massive world bosses. If you've looked around YouTube, you've probably seen the giant worm. There's also rumors that there are certain areas that if you find this glyph or rune and you follow a path, it will lead you to secret areas and secret bosses, prizes. It seems really cool, and I think that is awesome. It's also worth mentioning that this zone is supposed to be huge, 2.5 to 3 times the size of other zones, which means there is a lot to get through and a lot of places where the secret areas could be. And lastly, we're going to talk about the gearing system. So with the updates to dungeons, you get increases to your expertise pretty frequently. Almost every couple of drops is going to be some sort of piece of gear that is a higher gear score than what you have, unless of course you're like 600, something like that. You're going to keep working your way up. So running dungeons is an easy way to do that, but there are other ways and there's plenty of them. Now, when it comes to other ways to do it, you will come over to a gypsum kiln once you have collected some gypsum. Now that gypsum can come in different forms. You have obsidian, sapphire, garnet, emerald, so on and so forth. Basically, you will collect those by doing various things all around, ranging from doing arenas where you'll get garnets, all the way to OPR where you get rubies. You'll get topaz from killing level 55 plus mobs with the topaz potion used, obsidian from fighting world bosses. There's a lot of ways to earn them, and that means that there is variety. So once you've earned enough to make a gypsum orb, you will then take that orb to create a cast of an item. When you do that, it will then spit out an item that you selected at a higher gear score, therefore increasing your expertise. And if that's not enough for you and you just really miss doing trains, well, you have those too. People are still looking for it. If you want to increase your gear score, find some good loot with chest, you can just run around with massive groups through all the zones, all the elite zones, and get your gear score increased that way, or just do all of them if you want to move even quicker. Once you get to 600 though, it becomes a little different. You're going to want to get umbral shards, which you collect in a variety of ways, from OPR to running mutators, so on and so forth. And then once you have enough, you will try to upgrade your gear past 600 using those. Now, before you get to worry about that, you have to think about leveling your character up. Well, apparently that is getting much easier too, with some people reporting that is going to be 50% of the time required, which means you will get to 60 in half the time that it took before. If you made it this far, then you should be prepared and up to date with all the things that have happened in New World and ready for the Brimstone Sands update or the fresh servers if that's what you're coming back for. If this video was helpful at all, please consider subscribing to the channel and giving it a thumbs up, as well as letting me know which you are most excited for down below. Thank you so much for watching, and good luck in your adventures.